Hi, my name is Kalsoom. Welcome to the first episode of my podcast. This podcast is aimed at medical professionals who need to pass their IELTS or OET. If you're not a medical professional but still need to pass IELTS, then keep listening because this podcast can help you too. In this first episode, I'll be talking about who I am, what I do, how I do it, what you can expect from these podcasts, and how it can benefit you. So let me begin by introducing myself. I was born and brought up in the UK, where I still live with my husband and 4 children. I studied accountancy and business finance and was training to be an accountant. I actually didn't like it at all, but just thought it would just be a good career. My real passion, what I really was really good at, was teaching, English in particular. My friends in college and university would always ask me to proofread their essays and assignments, and I would happily correct any mistakes and even tell them how to restructure what they had written to make more sense of what they had written. Thankfully, I left the world of accountancy and became an English teacher by getting my Cambridge CELTA qualification. I've been an English teacher for over 12 years now. I started out teaching ESOL, which is teaching English as a second or other language, to people who had moved to the UK. To say I loved it is an understatement. I was in my element. I was finally doing something that I loved. And the best thing was I was helping people. I could see the impact teaching English was having on my students. They could communicate and make progress in their lives. They could begin to do simple things in their lives, like speaking to their neighbors, going to the doctor, being able to communicate with their child's teacher and help their children with their homework. I started loving it even more. I was teaching people from all over the world, from different backgrounds, religions, cultures, races. I once taught a conversational English class with students from 22 different countries. I taught students with all levels of English, some complete beginners to some more advanced, even students who were illiterate in their own native language, people who knew the language but lacked confidence to speak or write in English, and students with learning difficulties such as dyslexia. It's safe to say that I have taught the whole spectrum of language learners. It was during this time that I was introduced to IELTS and then OET and started teaching students wishing to study in the UK. No matter what level I taught, I saw the huge impact learning English had on my students' quality of life, whether it was being able to communicate and understand the doctor or neighbors or the child's teacher, to be able to speak to someone in the supermarket, being able to help their child with their homework, whether it was being able to get your dream job in your dream country and take your career to the next level, and being able to give your family a better quality of life and better opportunities. Or whether it was being able to study in a university or college and get a higher standard of education and improve your standing in the job market. The transformation, whatever that looked like, it opened doors. The confidence it gave was immense. I remember when my son started playgroup and the nursery teacher that would be with him, that would be teaching him, was actually one of my students when I first started teaching. Now, I only helped her with her English when she first arrived in the country for a short time, so I can't take all the credit, but it put her on a journey, onto a path. She passed all her English exams, got into college to study being a teaching assistant, got the qualification, got a job, and was now teaching my son. Talk about coming full circle. I decided that I wanted to help medical professionals in particular to pass their IELTS or OET, because I felt this was where I could make the most impact and help more people. I live in the UK and our NHS is an extremely important institution, one we are very proud of, especially through the pandemic. We always have a shortage of nurses and doctors. On many occasions, I've seen the brilliant work they do. When my father was extremely ill for 3 years with dementia, when I've been into hospital a number of times, when my children have been sick, I have seen firsthand the amazing work carried out by doctors and nurses who are mostly non-native. So I decided this was my way of giving back to the NHS in particular, but also helping medical professionals wherever they wanted to go: Ireland, New Zealand, the USA, Canada, Australia. So I started teaching one-to-one and did that for a while, but it was very difficult. You medical professionals are very busy people. You work very long hours, sometimes in the day, sometimes in the night. And on top of that, you have families and other commitments. And at some point, you need some downtime. You need some time to rest. So booking lessons became very difficult because of all of this, and progress was frustratingly slow. So I had to come up with a different way of teaching, one that would not compromise my quality of teaching. So my students were still getting the best from me, and that best served my students and their lifestyle. And most importantly, they were still able to make meaningful, consistent progress. I decided to pour all my knowledge and experience into an online course, a course that would take my students step by step, module by module, and guide them to how they can get the score they need. One that students could access at their convenience and could access on the go wherever they had time. It took me a long time to create them, but both my IELTS and OET courses are the most comprehensive courses out there. My students receive the course and work through at their own pace, but still have contact with me. I hold weekly accountability calls to make sure they're going through the work and making the progress, and I give further guidance and help. The course covers even things like having the right study mindset, and also how to study strategically and maximize your study time. So having a study timetable, a study plan. It has been a huge success, and I have helped so many medical professionals get the score they need. But now I've also launched my monthly membership training program, which takes you through the course in just 12 weeks. And if you're interested in joining that, by the way, I suggest you do so now as soon as possible, as I'm offering it at the founder member price of $24.99 per month. The prices will go up after the first round of the course is complete, and that starts in July. Okay, so what is this podcast all about? It's definitely not going to be about me. And how is this podcast going to help you get the score you need? The whole aim of this podcast is to keep moving you forward in your IELTS and OET preparation by giving you reliable, consistent, practical advice on how to get the score you need for both IELTS and OET. So some of the podcast episodes will be related to just OET, and some for just IELTS. But some of the episodes will be related to topics that can help you for both. So regardless of which test you're doing, things like grammar, vocabulary, study skills, motivation, mindset issues, and generally how to improve your English skills. So your reading, your writing, your speaking and listening. Also, from time to time, I'll be inviting guest speakers such as medical recruiters to give you practical tips on the whole getting a job and moving process. Also, and most importantly, by listening to this podcast, you'll be killing 5 birds with one stone. The actual expression here is killing 2 birds with one stone, but I'll explain all that later. You'll be listening and reading to English, learning vocabulary and phrases, practicing pronunciation, and getting brilliant advice on how to get the score you need, all at the same time. If you've been following my work or are familiar with my work, either on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, then you will know I am always pushing my students to read and listen to something in English every day. If this is done properly and consistently, you can improve your vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening and reading skills. So let me explain this a bit further so you fully understand how you can use this podcast as a real practical tool for your preparation. So by listening to the podcast, you are absorbing language. You're listening to pronunciation. You're picking up chunks of language and expressions and new vocabulary. You're also getting advice and guidance on how to prepare and what you should or shouldn't be doing in your preparation. Underneath this podcast are the show notes. Essentially, this is a complete transcript to this podcast. You can use this in a number of ways. So you can read as you listen. So you can have the transcript in front of you and follow along as you are listening to me speak and focus on, for example, pronunciation. You can read the transcript out aloud as you listen, or even just record yourself to check your pronunciation, your intonation, etc. You could read the transcript first. So before you listen, you can read the transcript, skim read it, and then listen to the podcast to check your understanding. You could use the transcript to analyze the language, so pick out the new words, learn the new phrases and expressions. You can analyze the grammar or sentence structure. So this wouldn't be so good for writing as this is spoken English, but just for speaking practice, just how I've put together the sentences and the grammar that I've used. I will also provide a brief analysis of some of the idioms or expressions I use, which you can then learn. So for example, I just mentioned killing two birds with one stone. So I'll explain that later on what that means. You can read the transcript first and use skimming and scanning, get the gist of what the podcast is about, and try answering the questions to practice your reading skills. So there's some questions at the end about the podcast, which you can answer to practice your reading skills or your listening skills. You can actually listen to the podcast and answer the questions at the same time. So it's up to you. You can either use it as a reading task or as a listening task, or both. It's entirely up to you. So you can see what an amazing learning resource this podcast is. I know as medical professionals, you are very busy. You work long shifts, day and night. Then you have paperwork to complete and have family commitments. And at some point, you obviously need some rest. So the best thing is for you to listen to this podcast at a time that suits you. And you don't even have to listen to it all in one go, just whenever you can, in your lunch break, while cooking, driving to work. It's really up to you, but I would urge you to make it a part of your routine. So for example, while traveling to work, that is your time to listen to the podcast. I do try to keep the podcast short, so it's manageable and it's, you are able to complete it. Lastly, I want you to know this podcast is all about you, the IELTS student, the OET student, the medical professional who wants to take their career to the next level, the father, the mother, the sister, the brother. It's all about you and helping you achieve your goals and dreams of getting your score and getting that dream job in the country of your dreams, giving yourself and your families the best opportunities and future you possibly can. If you would like me to cover any specific topic or area about IELTS or OET, you can always email me at englishwithitutor@gmail.com, or you can contact me through LinkedIn. That's usually where I'm hanging out. So, like I mentioned before, if you are interested in joining my monthly membership training, which begins in July, it's a 12-week training program where I guide you through step by step everything you need to know and practice and improve to get the score you need. It's a pay monthly membership, so you can leave at any time. But if you join in July, you will become the founder member and will only pay $24.99 per month as long as you stay in the membership, obviously until you get the score you need. The price will go up after the first round of 12 weeks has been completed. I provide all the lessons and the practice videos and all the practice materials. So just think, you could be test ready in just 12 weeks. If you'd like to know more or would like to join, you do need to hurry. It starts in July. Just send me a DM in LinkedIn or email me englishwithitutor@gmail.com. So what now? Well, you could do some or all of the following with this podcast as part of your preparation for IELTS or OET. So you've listened to this podcast now. So think about how much of this podcast you have understood. Were there any words or phrases you heard that you didn't understand? Go back and listen again. Write them down. Look them up in a dictionary or Google them and keep a note of them in a book. And review these regularly. Review these words and expressions that you've written down. And, wherever you find new words or phrases, use the same book and write it down in the same book so you have it all in one place, and review all of those on a regular basis so you remember them. You could use the questions at the end as a reading comprehension using the transcript, just as you would in the test, or as a listening task by listening again and predicting the answers just as you would in the test. I have to make it clear that, please be aware that this is by no means a replacement for the authentic OET and IELTS practice tests. This is just to improve the skill of reading and writing generally. In the next episode, you could do these activities first rather than listening to the whole podcast episode and then doing the activities in order to get the most out of it. So before you listen to the podcast, you could do the reading task, or you could listen to the podcast for the first time and answer the questions straight away as you are listening. It's really up to you. And, it depends on what level you are now. If you feel you need more support, then by all means, listen to the whole thing first and listen or read the transcript to help you get a deeper understanding. Or, use this in the best way that suits you. You can focus on pronunciation. You can do this by listening and then repeating as I speak using the transcript. Remember, please do not try to copy my or anyone else's accent. The IELTS and OET examiner is not looking for a British or American accent. They just need you to be clearly understood. However you decide to use this podcast, I really hope it helps you to prepare for your test. Just keep doing regular practice for your test with consistency. And, that's the key. Even if it's just 10, 15 minutes per day, before you know it, it will make you'll make huge progress, and you'll get that much closer to the score you need and that dream job. So until the next episode, take care and let me know if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions for any other episode, anything that you are struggling with, just let me know, just drop me an email. And I'd love to hear your feedback. So until the next episode, take care and I will speak to you soon.